Harvesting the skies is what you see on the screen here, which means that you have to try and first understand this complexity that water presents for a large country like ours. If you went back to the first module, you'll understand how water is one of the gravest crises that India has. In fact, the world has, but then given our population levels, it's far more serious here than in most other countries. What is harvesting the skies about? Well, we are talking about how we can capture the rain that falls on our lands. Okay, that's surface water management in a building or in a campus. You could be in a college campus of, let's say, 30 acres. And well, what can I do with all the rainwater that falls on that land? You ask a typical engineer, he says, no, I don't want flooding in my land. And therefore, he finds ways of driving the water away from the campus. Instead, if that engineer is trained to look at how you can harvest that water sensibly, while you also mitigate the threat of floods or inundation, great, you got a double gain that you have secured. Look at how it works, okay? Now, this is one example I take of a land of about 27 to 30 acres. Well, I will say 27 acres because that's the actual area of the land. This is to the south of the city called Bangalore. And the scale of this map is that from this center where the land is located to the north where you see this lake, it's a distance of about 7 kilometers. That is the scale of this map. Now, what we did is zoom down to show you the veins. The darker blue veins are lines of the ridge. That is, both sides, the land contours in a way that water is flowing in on those ridges. Now, don't take this seriously. When I say a ridge, it needn't necessarily be something that is this sharp. It could be a gentle undulation of the land, and over 1,000 years, 5,000 years, water has found ways of moving across those regions. Now, what has happened to cities is that other developments have come, buildings have been put up in those places. Sometimes, you know, veins like these or channels like these have been sort of blocked with buildings that have been put up. People don't understand what that means. Legislation does not recognize these things sometimes. And therefore, what has happened is, if you look at a contour of this kind in a satellite map, you recognize for yourself what those natural contours and ridges were. And what does it tell you? If the land is therefore contouring down this side or to the other side on the left of this map, you will see that this land is sitting on a slight crest with both sides tapering off. We looked at this land one day, sometime maybe a year ago, and then we came back to understanding what this means in terms of this beautiful connect that nature provides between soil and water and rock and the subterraneous, shall we say, strata of soil itself. Then we said, hey, how do we get a satellite mapping with resistivity tests of what lies at about 10 meters below the land? If this is the land, 10 meters or 30 feet below the land, what lies? What you see in blue here are, shall we say, the relatively water rich parts of the land. The yellow parts are those where there is rock, and the green parts are those where there is not much water, but the soil, which is gravelly in these parts, is not holding enough water. And therefore, between these three colors, you get an understanding of where the water lies, where the water does not lie. And those little specks that you see in red, you will see actually 11 of them if you count it, were the bore wells that had been dug in this land before we stepped in to doctor this land into making it a water positive land. Hey, did I say water positive? Yes. When we walked into this land, of these 11 bore wells that they have here on this land, there were only 2 bore wells that were working, and they were weak. There was one bore well which was giving for every 20 hours of pumping, 20 hours of pumping, they used to get about 12,000 liters. Can you imagine? They were not even getting 600, 700 liters every hour. And that was the state, and that continues to be the state of the groundwater resource, hugely depleted in this southern part of Bangalore, southeastern part of Bangalore. Right. Now, what it meant to us was, well, we said, okay, borewells are not working. The depth of the borewell was at about 1,500 feet. Way too much energy was being used for pumping it. And those poor blessed pumps were being overworked. And you know what happens to pumps if you work it for 18 hours and 20 hours? They conk out, they just die. And so you get someone to fix it, or you buy a new borewell and you spend more money. When we entered this land, we found that the people who owned this land had already spent something like 4 lakhs to a borewell. Not kidding. 4 lakhs to a borewell had been spent, about 40 lakhs had been spent and more. Then they figured that with each of the borewells, there was no water, so they dug another and another and another. Eventually, when they found these 2 borewells to the south here, which was yielding just that bit of water, of between them about 25,000 liters of water, they said, okay, we will continue to keep the pump here. And they did not commission or install pumps in the other 11. Well, in one of them, the third pump, that is, they did install a pump, and the pump is around. They wasted money on it, but there is no water to come. So what did they do, or what did we do? After understanding this at 10 meters below the soil, we looked at what it means in terms of, again, those resistivity tests. Check out what a resistivity test is and how it is conducted. And what does that mean for you to analyze sort of the availability of water in a land? You could do this for a city, by the way. This is sometimes called a heat map, for you to know where water lies and for you to know where water does not lie. Okay, so we found this at 30 meters, or at about 100 feet below the soil, below the ground surface of the soil. And well, we said it's not changing too much. We found the same amount of blues, the same amount of greens, and the rock strata below that, the rock sheet that lay in this area, was very clear. We knew, therefore, at this point, that digging anything here or making anything here is not going to work. If these 2 borewells were actually working and yielding a bit of water, it was thanks to the contour and what as water was yielded by the surface of the lands here, and not because of anything here around the rock sheet itself. Interesting, right? Now, how data sometimes of this kind can help you make a rational scientific decision in such a water resourcing or sourcing is what this is about. And then we looked at the top aquifer, which is right on the top. As you look at it with the human eye, how is the land? And we found the colors were more or less matching. Then we chose to draw these lines as on the template to arrive at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 microzones. We also realized that this whole area in the south was land which was not actually available for development for this, shall we say, owner of the land. And we found that this could be used, therefore, for some of the things that we wanted to do. We also remembered that these 2 borewells were yielding, but we wanted to tell ourselves, no way we are going to have borewells anymore used. We said we are going to find water in this place without borewells and without tankers importing water to this piece of land, to this campus, to this project. It's a residential campus. Let me now say this. It's a residential campus of about 500 homes. The challenge was formidable. 500 homes, even at about 600 liters to a house, was 300,000 or 3 lakh liters per day of water demand. So how do we solve this was one of the challenges that we had to look at. Then we found this pond there. This pond was at this place. You can see pond written here in yellow. And this is where this pond was. And we found that the contour, you can see these lines here. The dotted line, every dotted line to the dark line is about 1 meter drop, that is. And then from this 1 meter to here is another 1 meter drop. So 1, 1, 2, and then there's another third line going off here. That's a third meter, and so on. We found that to this point, there was a drop of about 12.5 meters. 1 meter is about 3+ feet, as you all know. 12.5 meters. There was therefore a drop from this corner to the northwest to this corner or this point of about 40 feet. We said, wow, this is something we can use for advantage. And therefore, we looked at how natural water flow at the top of the land, at the surface of the land, can be gently driven because of the roads and such things, gently driven to this pond that we saw here, right? This was already existent. We did not have to create this pond. This was done for various other reasons. This was not done because of a scientific understanding of what I call a watershed management process. They just did it because there was this piece of land and they said, okay, can I use this to see if we can put a pond? Then they did some basic random rubble masonry, as you can see here. And at the bottom, they did not do anything with it. It was just natural earth. It was holding water, all right, when it rained. And then we worked the volume of this. And for every 1 cubic meter, it is 1,000 liters. We found that this had about 12 lakh liters, 1,200 cubic meters, 1,200,000 liters that it could hold, okay? 12 lakh liters was the volume or capacity holding of this pond. Then we said, well, we'll work out the mechanical engineering aspects of it. We worked the total head, as I said, from that point to here, it was about 37.54 meters because of the vertical. This is part I'm not going to explain in this module, but for every 10 meters of horizontal travel, it's 1 meter, 1 vertical meter for reckoning for pumping purposes. Now, if you have to work the size of the pump and the efficiency of the pump, you also have to take into account friction losses, which come with bends and turns in pipes that you have in a layout or a kind of a enclave of this kind. So we said we'll have to work these out. We worked out the pumping capacities that was needed, and that's part of a story I'll have to tell you another time. Then we looked at that same space. You can look at this pond here now. It's I've zoomed in here, and then we said, if we don't this apart from this 12 lakh liters, we said here we could possibly create one more storage capacity of about 6 lakh liters. Then we said, hang on, what do we have currently on the campus as storage capacity? We found at B4 there was a sewage treatment plant that had been created, not functional yet because the project is still underway. And we found therefore that it had about 8.5 lakh liters of water that it could hold temporarily for 2 or 3 years until the entire campus was alive and many people have built their homes and the wastewater had to be treated in that STP. And that is 3 years away from now. Therefore, we said we will use that 8.5 lakh liters for storing of treated water. Now, I'll go back 2 slides for you to understand how we had therefore here 12 lakh liters. We proposed for ourselves another 6 lakh liters of a tank here. There was an overhead tank here. You can see water tank written here, and that had about 5.25 lakh liters of storage capacity, while we had another 8.5 lakh liters here with this STP at the corner. And that in total was 25 lakh liters, right? So we said, if we have as much as capacity out here of storing of water, how can I now harvest the water, harvest the rains? Look at this. Bangalore is a remarkable city, and this is in Bangalore, as I said earlier, where only for 2 months now, January and February, we receive under 10 mm of rainfall. Look at this. March is 16, and then it increases. In May, we are receiving 100 mm of rainfall, while if you are in Surat or in Delhi, you don't get a drop of water. You saw this last May. The heat can be at 45 degrees in those parts, and here in Bangalore, you receive about 100 of mm or 4 inches of rainfall. 1 inch is 25 mm, remember that. Now then it increases even further in June. By July, August, and September it peaks. October it sort of, comes peters down a little. By November it's back to 40 mm, and December we are at about 16 mm. What does that show you? The 10 months in a year when you're getting over 10 mm of rainfall. And look at the math here at the bottom, right? I'll help you to see this better. From a minimum of 25 million liters up to a maximum of 60 million liters is our estimate of water that could be captured from simply the rain water that falls on this land, right? Now, every 10 mm of water, every 10 mm of rainfall is approximately 40,000 liters to an acre. We have 27 acres. Knock, say, 7 acres out and think only 20 acres. 40,000 into 20 acres is 8 lakh liters of water that this land gets every time it rains just 10 mm. Now, how much is 10 mm? Is something that you can understand if you, got to seeing a rain gauge. Find out in your city where a rain gauge is. Ask those guys out there, or look at a website and see how a rain gauge measures the rain that actually falls on that region. And therefore, we found that on this entire land, that just a 10 mm fall of rains means that we can capture as much as 8 lakh liters. The story was built. The story was exciting for us. This took us about 5 months to understand, to come to this point. And then we said we will do a multiple set of interventions of this kind. Now, if you read about watersheds, you will find that these are all basic technologies or systems that have been in use in this country for 2000 years. You can go to Rajkot and western interior parts of Kutch, Kathiawar in Gujarat, and you will find that systems like these have been in use for 2000 years. In fact, deep south in parts of Tamil Nadu, from the time of the Cholas, which is about 900 AD to 1100, 1200 AD, systems like these have been prevalent, right? Now, we are not doing anything new. We are learning from traditional knowledge systems and employing a little bit of contemporary engineering understanding in order to see that we are able to bring such interventions. The other things that are not mentioned here are little bunds that you do, little revetments that you create. These are systems that are available. It's nothing that is new. And you have to do beyond the modules and beyond what we explain in this capsule. Understand it. Look for information like that. Well, I think you understand well that this is level 1 of the program. If you do want to know more and want to move to level 2, you could do more with the foundation and with Foundation Green as a program. There you are. Another model, another example. This was a simple government school building, and we took a satellite map of it. You can see the figures on the left side. You can see that we have the main building that has about 4,600 square feet. Center building, there's another building in the center. Here you can see that it's about 3,770 square feet. And then there's another called the RMSA, or whatever that stands for, which is about 3,000 square feet. The number of students who attend the school was at about 600. Consumption per day was at about 4 to 5 kiloliters a day. That's 4 to 5,000 liters a day. There were no borewells, 0 borewells. Then there was an existing underground sump tank, a small one. And we said, okay, there was an overhead tank. There were 2 overhead tanks, as a matter of fact. And then we said, if this is what the school has got, how can I now make this school water neutral or water positive? And we came up with solutions after that. Similarly, this is an enclave in Hyderabad. It has about 24 homes, large villas, and all of their water, 100% of the water has been imported for the last 10 years. This campus, this enclave was created sometime, I think in 2012, about 10 years ago. This cost them every year about 13 lakh rupees even if you assumed only 100 rupees per 1,000 liters, 13 million liters are being purchased from the outside to feed water to this campus. Then they came to us and said, sir, this is our challenge. What can you do to make our campus net zero? The first time I'm talking to you about net zero water, and there is a whole lot of basic process that this series of modules is seeking to explain to you. And so what we did is we looked at how we do a simple, basic water audit of the various points of consumption on the enclave and came up with this. We came up with the multiple usage points, cluster homes, a clubhouse that had some rooftops. So there was a services quarters, and there were some common surface areas like roads and paved walkway areas and so on. And then there was, of course, the villas themselves and the rooftop harvest that you could do there. This, for you to understand this, for you to see that you work a matrix of this kind of water solutions for a campus, well, I think it will take you at least the level 3 of this program for you to understand. But this is illustrative of how you can break this down and explain to the water user or the customer or the client as to how they could save in each of these areas simply the water from the skies. Look at this third column. It talks about water harvest potential at 0.75. That is, if I get one, we take only 75% of the rain that falls as a matter of caution. And with all that, and with those conservative measures and numbers, we found that we could collect about 1.5 million liters, 1.5 million liters per annum from just this segment. And then in the second segment, we found that we could collect as much as 3 million liters of water for drinking. This is water that will replace the purchased water that they were doing by tankers. And the third one was in the common areas and where the plot areas were. And we found that we had about 2.5 million liters of water in those spaces that could be harvested of water from the skies and used for purposes of drinking. What does that mean? Remember that figure that I told you about. Every year they are spending about 13 lakh rupees between all these homes for purchase of water. And if they did all of these things, they will get to about 70% of that 13 lakhs being saved. That's 9 lakh rupees that you can save year after year after year if you simply put in some very basic interventions. Of course, they cost a little bit of money, but that money can be recovered by you within a year, maybe within a year and a half. And that was the interesting part of this all. You can see on the left that although these numbers suggest that we could get about 75% of the water requirement, here we told ourselves cautiously that we will look for only 50% reduction in water demand, because a lot of it depends, of course, on the water user. If they are going to be responsible on the maintenance, if they are going to take care of the systems that we put in place, if the rains, of course, behave and at least match the kind of projections that we have made for this campus in Hyderabad, well, we can achieve it. So it's not simply the technology or the solution or the expertise that you bring as a water professional. It's also to do with the way the rains will behave into the year next and the year after, while, of course, behavior of the water users in terms of their being responsible about how they manage the system. We are not talking about reducing water consumption. We're talking about managing the systems. That will combine to make for effective net zero water. Questions for you all. How can you look at your city, find from the web what the monthly rainfall table of your city is? You could be from Durgapur, you could be from Rourkela, you could be from Guna in Madhya Pradesh, you could be from anywhere, and you will find, trust me on this, you will find the rainfall table for your city. If you don't find it on the web, if you're too small a town, maybe you will find it from somebody else in the municipal authority in your town or city. How much water potentially falls on an acre of land at 1 meter of annual rainfall? Work that out. That's part of the questions that will come up on the Google form for you to be responding to, and you are going to be evaluated on the basis of your responses to those questions based on this module's presentation. Third bullet, 100 square meters of, I'm asking you a very basic question. Let's say you had only 100 square meters, which is into 10, approximately 1,000 square feet of a rooftop of your house. How much can you harvest in a year in your city? Why am I saying in your city? Because between city to city, region to region, the rainfall pattern varies. In Bombay, I get 2,500 mm rainfall, but in Bangalore, I get only 1,000 mm rainfall. But in Bangalore, I get 1,000 mm spread over 10 months. In Bombay, I get it spread over only 4 months. Wow. So how does the challenge change in terms of how you store or deploy water and distribute it through the rest of the spread of the year is also part of such water management and development. Well, the other three basic questions, these are very basic. 1 cubic foot of water, 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. How much water does it hold? This is old math, class 6 mathematics, if you ask me. And how much does 1 cubic meter hold? Now, this is very important for you to understand, because finally, if you want to talk water management, you have to talk numbers. You have to talk areas. You have to talk the volumes of water and the capacity of storage. These are the fundamentals of anything that you want to do when it comes to smart water management. That's the closure of one more module of Foundation Green. Look forward to the next one that we will come up on this one. There is a certain sequence and order of the modules and the presentation of these thoughts that we are offering to you from the Alltech Foundation and the rest of the researchers out here. If you answer those questions, and if you slowly begin to understand what the numbers mean, you will progress into making yourself a smart water professional sometime soon. Cheers. Look forward to the next module and meeting you soon. Thank you.